Hey everybody, Robert from Black Belt Gaming. I hope you're doing well. I'm still fighting a cold, and my poor little daughter has the flu. Trying not to get that. But while I'm still healthy enough, although I don't sound so great, I thought I would talk to you a little bit about Lord of the Rings for 5th edition. This is basically the One Ring role-playing game set with the 5th edition rules. You may have been familiar or may have heard of Adventures in Middle-earth, which was a previous 5e rule set for Lord of the Rings. And I own those books. And the reason I picked this book up instead of the One Ring role-playing game is I wanted to make use of some things that I'd purchased before, and I thought they'd be compatible with this. This one is published by Free League Publishing. I believe the other game books that I have, maybe that was from Cubicle 7. But anyway, this is the newest version here. I'm speaking in October of 2023. So, as we'll just take a brief flip through here, hope to keep it brief for you. It's got a mixture of some color art as well as some drawings in here, which are pretty nice. The pages are easy to read. If you're over 50 like me, you might appreciate a little bit larger text, but that's not such a big deal. The pages are nice and thick, and so the book feels good when you're flipping through it. It gives you some new rules for playing in this particular game world. There's some structure to the game where you not only have your combat, but also there are parts of the game with some new rules regarding council and journey. So it kind of is trying to give you some rules to work with, not only the combat side, which we know 5th edition can do, but it gives you some rules to work with for social situations as well as exploration. So that's kind of neat. You put together a company of adventurers, and you have a patron. And this patron can give you some quests to accomplish. So it gives your party some guidance and purpose in their missions. One of the neat things is your group, your company, your fellowship has a set of fellowship points, and it's like a pool of inspiration that party members can use. There are some new skills for the game, a bit more things added for travel. So it's not just the survival skill like in 5th edition. That skill has been replaced with more skills called explore, hunting, and travel. And then there are a couple of other skills here, old lore and riddle, which are newer skills. So 5th edition, many people own that. I'm just simply using this basic D&D rule set that I downloaded years and years ago. I think this is the version that came out in 2018, and I think that's really all you need and to go along with this. So along with the game, let's see, there's not a lot of magic in the game, but you can find magical artifacts and things like that can help give your character not only some boosts, but can also give you something called magical successes, which are pretty neat. So if you're interested in playing someone that can hurl fireballs and magic missiles and such, it's not going to be in this game. So just sort of consider it a lower level of magic power from maybe what you're used to with standard 5th edition. There are some rules variants in this game that you should probably use, such as resting. It is a little more difficult to recover your hit points and such. A long rest can only be completed in a safe place. And a short rest is now 8 hours. So a short rest is actually something you can do on the road. A long rest, no. You need to find a safe place to relax. And so a short rest taking 8 hours, that's what you need in order to recover some of your damage and stamina. There are some rules here to give you some guidelines on if you want to use the One Ring role-playing game dice set. You can actually use that. So instead of using a D20, you can use D6s, and how to make use of all of that, including things like critical hits and advantage and disadvantage. It's kind of interesting. There are rewards and virtues. Rewards meaning like perhaps some artifacts or high quality items that you may be awarded or discover. Virtues, I think those are more like feats in this game. And then shadow and corruption. So you've got to watch out as the forces of evil will slowly begin to have an effect on you. And there's a whole downtime part of the game. I think it's called the fellowship phase, where you need to try to rest and recover and do some things outside of your adventuring. So some of the terminology is just a little different. Heroic cultures, I think, may be talking about essentially the races that you can play in the game. And men of different types, and then elves and dwarfs. As we go along, we have callings. Callings are essentially the classes. And just a list of them here. We have the captain. That's kind of a leader type, mixing strength and charisma. We have the champion. I think pretty much a straight fighter. The messenger, I'm not exactly sure what I would call that. I wonder if it's almost bard-like, perhaps. The scholar, I don't know, you might consider that somewhat of a bard type as well. But scholars don't get access to spells, really, but they can use something called crafts, which are interesting. I'll talk about them in just a moment. Treasure hunter, kind of like your rogue, and warden may be a bit like the ranger. So as you go along through these different callings, there are, I think, some guidelines on essentially multi-classing. If you're interested in that, maybe that'll come up later. Here's a bit on some crafting. Here it is. More than one calling is are the rules about maybe mixing a couple of these different classes together. The game goes to level 10 instead of level 20, but it does give you some guidelines on how to advance your character somewhat after level 10, should they get that high. There's of course the equipment section. And here we are in the rewards and virtues, things like keen weapons and reinforced shields and close-fitting armor and how those can benefit you. Virtues, I believe we said, are the feat-like abilities. Some of these are common. Others may be very specific to, like elves here. Maybe specific to the different races, essentially. And adventure phases, we have the council. This is sort of the social encounter where you may need to come and have an audience with someone in authority, and you can kind of go through this almost like a little skill challenge or something to see if you can get the number of required successes to get the help you need, or to get them to listen to what you have to say. And I think there are even some experience point rewards should you be successful. The journey. So when you're going from point A to point B, you sort of map out your trip and then determine along the way how many potential roles you'll need, how many potential encounters you may have along the way. And some of those can be, not really affect you that much. Others can start to make you tired, and others can hit you hard with even damage along the way. And there's some interesting descriptions here to help give you a summary of what happened. So instead of playing out everything step by step, which you're free to do, if you want to just sort of have a journey experience with sort of a streamlined method, but still have it part of the game, you can do that, so that you just don't simply say, well, you travel from here to there. And instead of kind of die rolling for wandering monsters and things like that, like we used to do back in the day, you have these rules to use instead. So yes, you may encounter something, but some other things might happen, not necessarily just a monster. The fellowship phase, I believe this is what happens in the downtime. I think this is where you might be able to use some of your experience points to level up, get some recovery, trying to shake off some of this shadow and corruption that you may have been experiencing during your travels. I think if you perhaps find some items of interest, you might be able to study and research those during this time. I'm reading more in this section right now. Here's the Lore Master section, working as a referee. Haven't gotten much into this yet, but talks about non-player characters, treasure. There can be simply, things that will give you coin, but also there can be marvelous artifacts and wondrous items. And so if you are interested in what kind of magic can be in the game, I think you'll find it mostly in this section. So there may be some ways to give you some bonuses to some of your rolls, or to allow you to essentially use your magic ring or your cloak or whatever it is to have what's called a magical success. So it sort of allows you to do something that seems very out of the ordinary, but something very special that really benefits you in that particular situation. So I'll be looking through that a bit more closely, but that seems pretty interesting. Like I said, it's a lower curses. There's even some cursed items and how to go about having those in the game. Haven't read that part yet. Shadow points. I understand there are ways to gain these, and it can start you on a path. And there are some different paths that you can go down depending upon your calling and how it will affect you, what you'll be tempted to do. It's, for example, if there's a dragon sickness is one of the things that you can be affected by. Basically, it's about greed. You start to want to accumulate gold above all else. And as you continue down this path, you become more and more greedy. And, you can become thieving as it's affecting you and corrupting you. You've discovered that anything that you desire can be yours. You just have to take it. So you've earned the right to take all you want. when you've sacrificed the love of your peers and your own self-respect. All right. Adversaries. So what kind of enemies can you encounter? Well, it's not a huge section, but it gives you plenty to start with. Evil men, orcs of different kinds, some different trolls. There are some undead, and even some wolves of the wild, including werewolves. Nameless things. I think you can actually put together here some interesting monsters. And I think this where at the moment you might be able to use some of your books from the previous edition, Adventures in Middle-earth. There may be some different creatures or things in there that you can pull into the game, since it should be 5th edition compatible. The Eye of Mordor, I think this is an optional rule set, adds a little bit of complication, but I think it's about if you are accomplishing some significant acts that might gain the attention of the Eye of Mordor, then you might start to be hunted and pursued. So there's some interesting things there. There's information on the world. I haven't read through this section yet, but this will detail some of the areas that this book will start you in. So your adventures will start around these places. And there might even be some NPCs or adversaries or such that you can deal with in these different regions. In the appendix, I think it talks about the different patrons, gives you some more information on those, maybe what some of their history is and what their motivations may be. And then some information on a little adventure, if I'm not mistaken. And here's your Lord of the Rings 5e character sheet that you can use. And in the back of the book, I haven't pulled this out yet, but there is a map. I'm assuming it's of this region. I don't know how that's attached here. Oh, I thought it was glued to the book or something. Oh, it was. It just kind of stuck on there with a little bit of glue or something. It's coming off. But let's take a look at this. All right, so this is the main area where you're beginning the game. And I thought it might have some hexes on here, but it doesn't. Yeah, I'm not completely familiar with the Lord of the Rings maps so much, so I guess I'll need to look further in the book for that. Well, yeah, here are some of your hexes. So I guess if you want to track your journey from one place to the other, you could sort of count hexes and I think determine how many spaces on the map you're going. That will determine how many checks you need to make during that journey phase. So this is the Lord of the Rings for 5e. I do some solo gaming. I've done that since I was a kid back in the 80s. So I sort of have my own way of doing it. I know there are a lot of books out there that can give you some advice and tips on what to do. But one of the things that's published for the One Ring is something called Strider Mode. And it gives you some rules on creating a character, using that rule set, and being able to play it on your own. And what I'm looking to do is to see if I can use those the Strider rules with my 5th edition rule set. So some of it is not exactly compatible, but a lot of it I think can be. For example, there are some specific quests that patrons can send you on, and there's some wonderful ways you can roll the dice to get answers to your yes/no questions and get some details on some things if you want some suggested ideas to get your juices flowing, to get your descriptions coming together. So that's what I'm planning to do some with this. Anyway, hope you enjoyed the flip through, and I'll be doing some solo play of this in the near future. So thanks for watching, everybody. I'll catch you later.